is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
Sometimes it's hard to see what's happening even when it's unfolding right between your eyes. Sometimes it's difficult to see the obvious. And maybe that's because you're too afraid to be right. Maybe it's because someone is afraid to be wrong and their primary goal in life is to never, ever, ever have anybody point and go, ha ha ha, see? I knew you were wrong. Well, I'm not afraid to be right. The Kevin Durant era in the NBA is about to begin. When I tell you it's about to begin, it will begin on May 31st of 2018. Kevin Durant, at that moment, will take the crown of best player in the NBA from LeBron James and will wear it for a good several years to come. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app, presented by Progressive Insurance. Genius is often dismissed as crazy. Genius is often dismissed as insane. Maybe even genius is sometimes called hot takes in its own time. Einstein was thought to be a dullard. Van Gogh only sold one painting in his lifetime. Jordan was cut from his JV team. When I tell you what's happening with Kevin Durant and LeBron James and is happening before your eyes, it is not simply some dismissible hot take. It is reality. You just want to wait till it's firmly obvious so you don't have to be wrong. Never, ever, ever, ever allow yourself to be wrong. That's not how I think. I see it and I say it. It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Last night, Kevin Durant scored his 20,000th point in the NBA. He is the second youngest in NBA history to arrive at 20,000 points. He is behind LeBron James in that fact, who scored 20,000 about a year earlier in his life. Roughly at the age of 28, Kevin Durant is 29. But he now joins an exclusive list of names, only 5 in fact, who have scored 20,000 points before their 30th birthday. They are names like this: Wilt Chamberlain, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, and now Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant has not only proved himself an elite scorer in the NBA, he is now an elite player. Since joining the Golden State Warriors, he has evolved into an overall amazing basketball player. He was always an amazing basketball player, but what I'm talking about is well-rounded, team-playing, championship-winning basketball player. He's 8th in efficiency this year. He's 2nd. He's tied for 2nd in block shots. He's turned into a defensive player, a defensive stalwart before your eyes, all while becoming just the 5th player in NBA history to score 20,000 points. And here's the real kicker. He is doing this not off to the side, not in the darkness, not on Tuesday night games when you're not watching. He's doing it to LeBron James directly. He wins the NBA Finals MVP when going head-to-head with LeBron James. On Christmas Day of this year, he made a handful of defensive plays to win that game for the Golden State Warriors against LeBron James. Whether or not you think they were fouls or fair blocks, they were in the end successful defensive plays against LeBron James. And when the NBA Finals begin on May 31st of 2018, that will be the beginning of the Kevin Durant era in the NBA. It will be his sunrise of his 2nd NBA championship, most likely his 2nd NBA Finals MVP. The analogy I've often used is that of a race car, NASCAR, if you will. 2 cars passing each other on the racetrack. Where Kevin Durant has been since the NBA Finals last year has been a car pulling up around the rear quarter panel of LeBron James' car, inching up on the door side, approaching the front quarter panel. Now, admittedly, LeBron James this season had another gear. His car shifted into 6th, pulled away a bit down the stretch. He's having a career performance in 2017. LeBron James reasserting himself. But by the end of this season, with another championship in hand and well-rounded game having developed and an unstoppable scorer even in the face of LeBron James, With Kevin Durant having become all of those things, his race car will have slungshot around LeBron James as the best player in the NBA.
I think somebody else is in this camp, Will. Somebody that I don't know if you want to be in the same camp with.
Who's that?
A little audio from NBA Countdown last night. I don't know if you heard it.
I have not.
Paul Pierce.
I'm in
He's been known to say a thing or two.
That's great company. I'm in company of Paul Pierce.
You are.
Let's hear it.
I'm going to say one thing about Kevin. He is probably the most elite scorer in NBA history. When you look top to bottom, let's say guys like, you got Will Chamberlain, of course, did a lot of things inside, Karl Malone, Jordan, mid-range inside, but KD shoots the three. He's elite in transition. He gets to the line. He can score inside.
So the best scorer in the history.
Here we go again.
Of the history.
Just the most dynamic scorer in the history. I mean, when you talk about a guy 7 feet, shoot threes, he's a better shooter than Jordan, LeBron. Guys, let's look at all the guys at the top. He's just as good at it as them in transition. He's just as good at this as getting to the line. He's just as good as in the post. So when I look at all the offensive categories,
we can't keep talking about just as good.
I mean, he's elite. He's elite in those categories.
I mean, he's definitely elite.
You know, Michael Air Jeffrey Jordan played in the NBA, right?
The three is.
You said the most complete and best scorer.
Dynamic.
Shooter and scorer.
You keep changing words.
Paul is really good at this. Paul is really good at this TV thing. I love me some Paul Pierce.
He went from best scorer of all time to most dynamic,
right,
to 3-point shooting better than Jordan, to just elite scorer.
Just as good. Don't forget, just as good was one of those.
Just as good, yeah.
So
let's
listen to it
rungs.
again. Watch the layers of the onion pulled back, or if you want to call it a moving target. Watch the target slide around on the ice skating rink as he goes from the best to the most dynamic, to just as good, to 3-point shooting. Watch the movement. This is elite level stuff you're watching from Paul Pierce here. I'm talking, this is debate 501. This is Trumpian, Wilkanian level of I am scrambling, but I am winning. Watch this.
I'm going to say one thing about Kevin. He is probably the most elite scorer in NBA history. When you look top to bottom, let's say guys like, you got Will Chamberlain, of course, did a lot of things inside, Karl Malone, Jordan, mid-range inside, but KD shoots the three. He's elite in transition. He gets to the line. He can score inside.
So the best scorer in the history.
Here we go again.
Of the history.
Just the most dynamic scorer in the history. I mean, when you talk about a guy 7 feet, shoot threes, he's a better shooter than Jordan, LeBron. Guys, let's look at all the guys at the top. He's just as good at it as them in transition. He's just as good at this as getting to the line. He's just as good as in the post. So when I look at all the offensive categories,
we can't keep talking about just as good.
I mean, he's elite. He's elite in those categories.
I mean, he's definitely elite.
You know, Michael Air Jeffrey Jordan played in the NBA, right?
The three is.
You said the most complete and best scorer.
Dynamic.
Shooter and scorer.
So good.
You keep changing words.
I wrote him down. He goes, most elite all time. Pressed, Paul says, most dynamic. Pressed again, he goes through a litany of things he's just as good at. Then pressed again, he comes back full circle to elite, but drops the all-time part, which was really kind of the catch because Michelle points out, well, yeah, he is elite. He's so good at this. I once watched him proclaim Russ Westbrook, I think it was Russ, the best point guard in the NBA. Pressed, he said, best scoring point guard in the NBA. They said, what about Steph? I said, best true point guard, scoring point guard in the NBA. He kept moving it. I love you, Paul. You're the best. You're welcome on this show anytime. You know who else is the best? KD. He's about to be the best in the NBA. I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give you the perfect analogy. Who KD is, who LeBron is. That's Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest, most dependable 4G LTE networks. Are you with me or are you against me? It's happening. Don't be a follower. Don't wait till it's obvious. Be brave. See it. See it happening now. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. KD passing LeBron as the best player in the NBA. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. What's up, everyone? Will Cain here. Support for the Will Cain podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. NMLS, consumeraccess.org, number 3030.
Down the right side, KD for 20,000. Got it! On the left wing. He becomes the 5th player in NBA history to get to 20,000 points under the age of 30. And what an elite group it is. LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Wilt Chamberlain, and Michael Jordan.
There's the call on 95.7 The Game. Kevin Durant reaches 20,000 points, and you heard the list of elite names he now joins. Wilt Chamberlain, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant. Players who have scored 20,000 points before reaching the age of 30. And what I'm here to tell you is I'm describing what's happening before your eyes. And Kevin Durant, while not yet clearly, not yet definitively passing LeBron James, is in the process of passing LeBron James as best player in the NBA. My prediction is this: May 31st, 2018. That's when the crown is snatched from LeBron and placed on Kevin Durant's head as the best player in the NBA. Darren in South Carolina, you're on the Will Cain Show. What's up?
How's it going, Will? I just like to say I feel like Kevin Durant is close, but I don't even think at the conclusion of the finals he will be above LeBron, because I feel like if you take Kevin Durant off the Warriors and insert LeBron James and do the same for Cleveland, I feel like the production for Cleveland would go way down, and Warriors would definitely go up with LeBron on that team. The way he can move the ball, the way he can just be dynamic, making other players better.
That may be, Darren. I appreciate the call. That may be. I don't know. I mean, if you switch them on the two teams, here's the thing. That's a hypothetical that we could argue endlessly about. But I do know the facts. I know that by the end of this year, Kevin Durant will have 2 NBA championships. I know that he'll still be 29 years old. I know that LeBron James will be approaching the age of 34. I know that, on average, NBA superstars tend to tail off around the age of 34. Kareem, Michael, Kobe, some of their best seasons, their last great season was right around the age of 34. LeBron James is approaching the age of 34. It's no insult to LeBron James. LeBron James, it's not an insult to his legacy, who he's been for the past decade. It's only calling it how you see it now, what reality is happening before your eyes. And somehow I think we see it as a disrespect to LeBron James to say what we're seeing occur before our eyes. He won't be the exact same kind of player as LeBron James. That's not how crowns are taken. LeBron James wasn't the same kind of player as Kobe Bryant. Kobe was similar to Jordan, not the same person. It's not like you keep replicating and improving the exact same kind of player. It will just be Kevin Durant's league, and his window will last a good 3 to 4 years. Frank in Chicago, you're on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Frank?
My question to you is, why do you think it's going to take Kevin Durant to beat LeBron James in this finals to take the crown from him, not now?
The analogy is this, Frank. Evidence starts to pile up. I think the great comparison is Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. We had this debate for many, many years. Who's the best quarterback in the NFL? Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning won on most statistical categories. Peyton Manning carried his teams in many ways that Tom Brady didn't. People said Tom Brady's a system quarterback. He's a product of Belichick. He's got all these things that Peyton Manning doesn't. Same things they say about Durant. He's got Draymond, Defensive Player of the Year. He's got Steph. He's got Clay. But after a while, as Tom Brady continues to rack up Super Bowl trophies, as he continues to be a leader of a team that is itself a dynasty, it's pretty hard to go back now and argue that that Tom Brady didn't take the crown from Peyton Manning at one point, and Tom Brady then went on to establish himself in the argument as greatest of all time. That's not what I'm arguing, by the way. I'm not arguing that Kevin Durant is taking the greatest of all time crown from LeBron James. I'm talking about taking the greatest right now crown from LeBron James. And again, I'm not saying if you watch them both on the floor right now, the seasons they're having right now, that it's happened. I'm telling you that it's happening. I heard Stephen A. Smith had some things to say about me a little earlier today. Is that right? Let me see what this sounds like. I haven't heard this yet.
Top of the hour. The new Will Cain Show. will be on ESPN Radio. Make sure to tune in to him today and every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. He is the reserve, the backup. He is not the number one voice to lead in. He is the backup. He's a rookie. But you support him. He's a good dude. Completely polar opposite than me. The antithesis of me. But everybody.
That's right, because I'm first take. He's second take. I started telling people back in the NBA Finals as it was happening.
You and Paul Pierce.
Fine, me and Paul.
I'm going to say one thing about Kevin. He is probably the most elite scorer
I'm with you,
in
Paul.
NBA history. When you look top
yes.
to bottom, let's say guys like, you got Will Chamberlain, of course, did a lot of things inside. Karl Malone, Jordan, mid-range, inside. But KD shoots the three.
All right, I can't do the whole thing. Most dynamic. No. Okay, he's, what is it? Just as good. Back to elite.
Currently elite.
Yes. He's amazing at this. Paul is amazing at this. I told Stephen A. this morning, I've been trying to tell you this since the NBA Finals. I guess I'm first take, you're second take. You'll get there when it's obvious. You'll get there when everybody can see it. That Kevin Durant has wrested the crown from LeBron James' head. But I'm telling you it's happening. You can see it unfolding.
I feel like you and Pierce are just fighting it out for who wants to be first in this argument. It's not about whether or not that actually he is the best player in the league. It's about I want to be first on making sure, because it's probably going to happen. I mean, at some point, LeBron's going to fall off the cliff. He's not going to be as good as he's been for the last 5-10 years, and somebody's going to pass him as the best player in the league. But you just want to be first. That's really what this is about.
No. I'm trying to help you. I'm not trying to beat you. I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to help you see reality, Cerruti. LeBron's decline has not yet begun, but Durant's ascendance has. And Durant's ascendance will continue.
Because he plays for a better team?
This is my least favorite argument. Here's the thing. You have to achieve some consistency. I criticized Durant for joining the Warriors.
Same.
Because you did too. Okay.
Yep.
For example, on first take, Max Kellerman did not. I thought it was a weak move. I do think it's a weak move to go, if you can't beat him, join him. But that's not going to keep me from calling it like I see it on the player he is emerging as. It's not going to keep me from looking at what's happening before my eyes and going, that player right there, at the very least in the last 2 minutes of the game, that player right there, Kevin Durant's on a mission to destroy everybody else in this debate. That's a fact. You can't watch a Cavs-Warriors matchup and not see KD has it to his toes that he's here to take that crown.
I'm not denying that he's nipping on his heels, but to say that he's passed him because he joined a team with 3 other All-Stars and won a title, that you don't get to use that as an excuse for why Durant's better.
When he was Finals MVP.
When you sit here
he didn't sit on the bench and just get a ring.
When you say he sit here and won a title, you act like I care about that. That doesn't matter. It would have mattered if he did it in OKC. It doesn't matter that he did it in Golden State.
He could rack up 5 titles and it won't matter to you?
5, if he wins 5 in a row and he's the best player and he wins all 5 MVPs, then I'm having a discussion.
4?
I don't know.
3?
I'll have to see how it looks.
2?
Not 2.
You
Definitely not 2. I'm drawing the line at 2.
Okay. It's the Will Cain Show, reminding that you can watch all 3 hours of the show on ESPN News. Darren Woodson's going to hop in here. We'll ask Darren what he thinks, if he's seen it happen before our eyes, and who should be the new coach of the New York Giants. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Winston Churchill flunked 6th grade. He then lost every political office he ever ran for before becoming the prime minister and wartime leader of the United Kingdom. Jerry Seinfeld was booed off stage the first time he took the stage to be a stand-up comic. Sometimes those who are just right, those who are just ahead of their time, are laughed at, are mocked, are called hot take artists. Kevin Durant is surpassing LeBron James as we speak as the best player in the NBA. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Darren Woodson's in studio. Darren, my argument is simple. Mm-hmm. We're watching the torch being passed. It may not yet be in KD's hands.
I don't think it's in his hands just yet.
But by May 31st, 2018, that's when it will be firmly in his hand.
And why that date?
That's when the NBA Finals begins.
So you're saying you're already giving it to the Warriors that they're going to.
Oh, come on, that's the easiest. That's the easiest take of all of it.
Look, we're still in January right now. There's still time. There's still time. There's still injuries to be had, man. There's a lot of things that could change.
The thing about the Warriors is they can survive an injury or two.
Yeah, that's true. But look, I think you're right in some aspects that as far as being the best player in the world is going to change hands at some time. And Kevin Durant's going to get there eventually. I'm not ready to just give it to him now. I still think there's a lot more to his resume that he needs to add on to become that. Because it wasn't until last year we started talking about his defensive prowess. It wasn't until last year.
That's fair. It's true that his defensive prowess has been something that's sort of a new revelation.
So now it's coming along and he's getting better, and we're starting to see that part of his game. But we've been talking about LeBron's defensive prowess on both. We talked about him on both ends of the floor forever.
Yeah, but we're not taking LeBron's history from him. We're only saying it's becoming history. We're not taking the all-time crown from LeBron. We're not replacing LeBron in the record books with the name Kevin Durant.
You're just saying right now, it's Durant's time. I mean, 2 years ago we were talking about the same thing.
That's right. Well, we forget. By the way, everybody acts like Kevin just emerged when he went to the Warriors. He has a league MVP on his resume.
Yeah, but we weren't talking about Durant 2 years ago. We were talking about Curry 2 years ago replacing LeBron as the best player. Yeah, were we not? I mean, these guys are on the same team.
Kevin's got a little more in his. Wait.
What separates the two? Because we were just having this argument 2 years ago about Curry supplanting LeBron James as the greatest player. Now it's Durant. Why is it different?
I think Durant's ability to take over the game is more than Curry. And Curry's is great. I mean, we're talking about the difference between, by the way, these are the top three players in the NBA. I mean, Kawhi has an argument to be in there as well.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So we're not talking about a massive gulf, and that's what makes the Warriors so great. But I do think Kevin Durant is the 1A on that team.
Yeah.
Now that he's joined that.
Yeah, I agree. I think he at some point is going to get there. But I think that's what makes the conversation about LeBron James so great. Because he's the guy. He's the lightning rod. And we've been talking about this same guy for 15 years since he walked into the league with Cleveland. Like, he was going to be the next guy. He was going to be the next Jordan. And we've been comparing everyone to him for so long that, I'm just not ready, man. I'm just holding on to hope that LeBron is still going to maintain for a little bit longer. And he's a Cowboys fan, so I just want to.
Oh, there's that. That's true. Let's talk about who's ready to be a head coach in the NFL. Ryan Russillo and I used to joke about guys having coordinator face. Look at that guy, Ben McAdoo. He just has a coordinator face. That's not a head coach face. And I've had conversations as well with other NFL analysts in the studio who've talked about personalities.
Yeah.
Some guys just don't have the personality for head coach.
Correct.
They could be great coordinators, but not the personality for head coach. Did you ever have a guy like that? The truth matters, you had Zimmer, who I think was painted with that brush for a long time.
He was painted with that brush for a long time. And I think it was because, he followed who as a mentor of mine has been, drafted me with the Cowboys was Dave Campo. And I think Dave Campo, basically brought Mike Zimmer in, and Campo was painted with the same brush as being just a defensive coordinator, and he wasn't successful as a head coach. So coming from that tree, I think people felt the same way. Well, if Dave Campo was not going to be successful as a head coach, Mike Zimmer is not going to be successful as a head coach. And I think it does have a lot to do with, first of all, it has a lot to do with, are you buying the groceries, and are you the decision maker? Campo never could buy the groceries, nor was he the decision maker. Mike Zimmer has his hands and his identity all over this thing in Minnesota, but it does parlay it to this. You have to have a personality, a CEO personality within things, because you're not just talking about managing the players. You're talking about managing the front office, managing the coaches, which could be even more, it could be harder than just dealing with the players, because coaches have their own opinions on how the game plan should fall out, or how the defense should be run, or how the offense. Norv Turner this year with Mike Zimmer. I mean, there was a fallout there. I mean, you have to manage every situation and then do your job on the sidelines during the game. So I think there's a lot to be said about there are certain people who could take on that responsibility. I remember Sean Payton coming in with the Dallas Cowboys and being, first of all, he was with the Giants, and he came up with the Cowboys under Bill Parcells. And Parcells was grooming him to be a head coach. At the same time, in 2003, he was grooming Mike Zimmer on the defensive side of the ball to be a head coach. And if you talk to both of these guys who are going to see each other this week, those two will tell you what changed them. And that was the guidance of Bill Parcells.
Who wins that game? Vikings, Saints.
I'm going with the Vikings at home.
Really?
Yeah. Saints have had trouble winning on the road. And the Vikings at home with that defense Those two guys Peyton and Zimmer know each other. They had battles in practice with the Cowboys. They're good friends off the field, but on the field, they want to go at each other's throats. I think defense wins out in this football game. Minnesota wins out.
Are you making picks on all these games? Let me just run through them.
Let's go ahead.
All right, Eagles, Falcons.
I got the Falcons winning that game. This game, I don't trust.
That's an easy pick,
I don't
right?
trust Foles right now. And things could change. You never know. Things could change. The one thing I like about the Atlanta Falcons, and I'll just speak on that end, the secondary is coming around. They're playing lights out in the back end with that secondary. True Font he's healthy this year through the postseason, so he's really helped them. Keanu Neal's a big time player in the run game and in the back end. And they can get to the ball. They run. Deion Jones runs sideline to sidelines. They are spectacular on the defensive side of the ball, and they're young. They're getting there. Offensively, the best weapons in football.
Do I even need to ask you about the AFC, or is it just obvious?
No, of course.
Pats and Steelers.
It's Pats and Steelers, man. I think look, the Steelers game could be interesting. It could be interesting because the one thing Jacksonville has is they have defensively they have a swagger, and they're not going to melt. In Pittsburgh, they're not going to just say, "Oh, we're going to get bullied around." No. Defensively, they're the big bullies, and they bullied the Steelers around the first game. So that's going to be a great matchup. I think it all lays on Blake Bortles. Can he get the ball down the field?
I got to get out of here, but I want to ask you this: see if you can do it. Maybe it's a 5-minute answer, and if so, just say, "I'm pulling the ripcord." Will more impressive, Tom Brady at the age of 40 or LeBron James at the age of 33?
Tom Brady at the age of 40.
Yes.
Just the physical nature of the game, the beat down, the mental part of this thing. I mean, it's week in and week out. I understand the basketball season is a long time, but for what Brady's had to go through in the last 15 years now. I mean, he's 40 years old now. I mean, playing at that high of a level into your 40s. LeBron's not there yet. No. He's not there. I think his greatness is what it is. I love LeBron James. He's my favorite athlete, but at the same time, Tom Brady he's put together a hell of a resume and in the physical nature, the way he's played it.
All right. Coming up straight ahead. Appreciate it, man.
No problem.
I'm going to tell you why Darren's right. Why Tom Brady at the age of 40, more impressive than what LeBron James is doing at the age of 33. That's next on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. We just got this audio in. Paul Pierce was on ESPN's The Jump with Rachel Nichols, and he has clarified exactly what he means when he says Kevin Durant is the most elite scorer in NBA history. Let's listen to his clarification.
I'm just saying the way he goes about it. I mean, of course, these people score more points probably on average, but when you look at his total package, he's 7 feet tall. He can handle like a guard. I mean, tell me what player in NBA history at 7 feet, you had Dirk who transcended the position.
Yeah, but the question isn't who is the best 7-footer. The question is...
But the way he does it at his size is unique and something we've never seen. The three, that separates them. None of them. Jordan, Kobe, Malone, Kareem. Correct. None of them can shoot the ball like him, and he's a 7-footer, putting it on the ground, playing like a point guard. Who can we say on that top 5 list scores the way he does?
He's so good. Good luck to you trying to pin down Paul Pierce. So I wrote him down, okay? Between what he said last night on NBA Countdown and what he just said on The Jump. He started out with this. Here, you to the top.
I'm going to say one thing about Kevin. He is probably the most elite scorer in NBA history.
All right, so he starts out with that. He is the most elite scorer in NBA history. In the same clip, he changes it to dynamic. He's the most dynamic, okay? What I mean is he's the most dynamic. And then he rattles off a list of things that he's just as good. From the three-point line, taking it to the basket, in the post, just as good. They're like, well, what do you mean just as good? You just made the argument that he was elite. That he was better than everybody else. He's right. What I mean is he's elite. We all know he's elite is what they said. What about all time? You said all time. And then he goes back to this. I'm saying dynamic. He's back to dynamic. And then he makes the point as a 7-footer.
I know what he's trying to say.
I actually do too.
He's saying that Durant has more tools in his shed than anybody else does in the history of the game. He has more. He can shoot from deep. He has an inside game. He has a handle like a guard, even though he's 7 feet. That may not make him the best scorer of all time, but he's the most unique scorer of all time.
See, you're doing the Paul thing. You're using different words.
I'm trying to help our friend Paul.
No, listen, I'm on Paul's team. I'm on Paul's side here.
Is that a good thing?
Yes. Because here's the deal. It's funny how he's moving the ball. It's funny how he keeps slicing the onion super thin. But at the end, I don't care if he's talking about elite all-time, dynamic, 7-footer. I know what he means, just like you do. You get it, too. You get what he's saying.
It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain Kevin Durant to somebody. Like, here's this.
Exactly.
He's kind of a unicorn.
Yes. And I get when Paul is doing that whole thing about, like, Russ Westbrook is the best point guard in the NBA. What I mean is he's the best scoring point guard in the NBA. What about Steph? What I mean is he's true point guard, best true scoring point guard. What about Chris Paul? Chris Paul is a true point guard. When he starts doing those things, I actually get what he's saying. I think Paul is a star. I really, really do. I think Paul is great at this. And I also think he's right about KD. Kevin Durant is in the process of passing LeBron James as the best player in the NBA right now. By the way, Darren Woodson was just in studio with us a moment ago. He was giving us the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Darren Woodson said he thought Tom Brady's performance at the age of 40, his longevity, is more impressive than LeBron James' performance at the age of 33. LeBron James' longevity. I agree with him. What Tom Brady has managed to do this year has been the biggest rebuttal, the biggest in your face to his critics that he could have ever conjured up. Tom Brady has put together an MVP season during the year that some have said he has gone over the cliff, that quarterbacks over the age of 40 ripen and turn like a bad banana. And he has put together an MVP season. He will win the NFL MVP this year. LeBron James is having an amazing season in his 15th year in the NBA at the age of 33. I mean, what is it? 27 points a game, almost 28 points a game, 9 assists, 8 rebounds. He's among the league leaders in all of these categories. And doing it at the age of 33, carrying a Cavaliers team that really doesn't have for him the help that was envisioned. Isaiah's been hurt most of the season. Jay Crowder has been getting integrated into the team. LeBron James has carried the team. But the difference is this, to use the cliff analogy. Tom Brady's over the cliff. He's Roadrunner, running on air still. The ground is well behind him, and he's performing while still moving forward over the cliff. LeBron James has not yet gone over this theoretical cliff. Most NBA superstars turn at the age of 34, roughly. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, last great season, like the top, his peak season, age 34. Kobe, age 35. Michael Jordan retired at 34. Now, it's not a cliff the way it's been described in football. It's not that these basketball players all of a sudden dropped off, but that's when they began to tail off. They began to curve downwards statistically in their categories. And that's one of the reasons I've argued that Kevin Durant is passing LeBron James, because very soon that turn will happen for LeBron. And Kevin is still ascending.
But I'm not arguing about his age. What I'm arguing about is seasons. He's 15 seasons in. Jordan's 15th season was his last season with the Wizards. And LeBron is still playing at an elite level and is still the best player in the NBA in his 15th season in the league in a much more physically demanding position than what Tom Brady is doing.
So you think what LeBron is doing is more impressive than what Brady is doing?
Definitely.
Brady is literally doing things people said were impossible. He's literally doing things people said could not be done.
Look at all the counterparts of LeBron, the people he was drafted with. Bosh retired. Wade is a shell of himself. So is Carmelo Anthony. Those guys can't keep up. He's played more minutes than any of them. He's been to the finals for 7 straight years, and he's still the best player in the NBA.
Give me your opinion. 888-SAY-ESPN, 888-729-3776. Which performance is more impressive, Tom Brady or LeBron James? Also, would you rather have Matt Patricia or Josh McDaniels?
Thank you for listening to the Will Cain Podcast. You can listen to the Will Cain Show live weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Will Cain Podcast. This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
If given the choice between doing more with less or doing more with more, I'll take my chances with the guy that can do more with less. If given the choice between Matt Patricia and Josh McDaniels as my head coach, I will lean towards Matt Patricia. The guy has done more with less, while Josh McDaniels has done more with more throughout his career. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. I want to get to that in just a moment. First of all, I've said to you this. I think what Tom Brady has done at the age of 40, putting together an MVP-level season, not even MVP level, let's just stop using these qualifiers, putting together an MVP season at the age of 40. When many have said, he's over the cliff, quarterbacks turn at the age of 40, they go over the cliff, Warren Moon, Brett Favre, Peyton Manning. And in response, Tom Brady puts up an MVP-level performance. I'm sorry, I have to correct myself again. An MVP performance is more impressive than what LeBron James has done at the age of 33. And don't turn this into, well, LeBron hater, make your money criticizing the greatest of all time. I'm not saying what LeBron's doing at the age of 33 isn't impressive. Just a little less impressive than what Tom has done. Rick in Kentucky, you're on the Will Cain Show.
How you doing, Will?
Good. What's up?
I'd like to flip it around on you a little bit. First of all, I'm a big fan. I support the show. I'm a really big fan, and I almost cried when Zillow quit. So I'm a fan. I go way back.
I appreciate it, and he will too.
Let's turn it around a little bit. What was Tom Brady doing when he was 18 years old? Do you know what LeBron was doing?
Yes, LeBron was impressing everybody in the NBA, and Tom was a backup quarterback at the University of Michigan.
Okay, so my point is, if you want to start on the back end, that's fine. We can start there and say, okay, because he's 6 years older and it's remarkable, but it's just as remarkable that LeBron came in at 18 and was one of the dominant players in the NBA.
Okay, thanks for the call, Rick. Listen, that would be great if I were having an argument about whose first season in the professional level was more impressive, but I'm not having that debate. I'm having a debate about who's most recent at the age of 40 and the age of 33 for LeBron, 40 for Tom Brady and the age of 33 for LeBron is more impressive. Now, listen, I'll be honest with you because I told you when I launched this show, my goal is to always be truthful and never go unchecked. You call me Rick, you check me, but I'm going to be truthful with you. I do have certain biases, and one of my biases is this. For whatever reason, I tend towards all those cliched things like, gritty guys, less talented guys, and it's not to say that LeBron hasn't worked hard because that would be a complete and utter disservice. But I guess your point about where Tom was at the age of 18, I look at it and I go, but that makes me appreciate him more. Counted out, drafted in the 6th round, put behind Drew Bledsoe, never really emerged at the University of Michigan, always doubted, not blessed with otherworldly athleticism. Yes, clearly incredible athleticism because he's in the NFL and the top of the game. But making his hay on hard work, discipline, not eating donuts, much less tomatoes. I do have a bias towards that sort of, I don't know, man. It's not fair. Bootstrap, cliched, built yourself, image. And it's not fair because LeBron has built everything about himself.
Hold on.
No, because I know what you're going to do. Okay, go ahead, go. You can do it. Go.
I think you sneaky want to beat Tom Brady.
Well, hold on. Before you get me on Tom Brady, all right? And you can. I see you all raring up in there. I just want to say this because I don't want to leave it hanging. I don't want to take any of that away from LeBron. LeBron came from a place where so few did make it. LeBron came from a hard circumstance. LeBron built himself up. LeBron is an amazing self-made story. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to say I recognize my biases. Tom's just feels a little more like counted out. That's what it is. A little more doubted.
Because you want to be him more.
Okay, I don't want to be Tom.
I don't.
The Giselle thing's nice.
There's some evidence out there that would suggest otherwise. You could totally subscribe to the TB12 lifestyle. I think you want to do it. I think you're interested in doing it. We should probably just buy the book and let you go for it.
You should buy the book. I do it for the show. I'm into self-improvement. I'm into not being closed off to ideas that might make you better.
You are the, how do I be my best me today guy?
Yeah, but doesn't mean I live up to it.
Maximize my potential.
I like to think about it.
What is my peak performance time of the day so I can schedule my meetings for that time?
I sent you that article.
That's
awesome article in the Wall Street Journal showed what most people's peak performance is throughout the day. And unless you're a complete night owl, this is a PSA for everyone listening. Your peak mental performance is around 10 a.m., 10:30 a.m. That's when you're firing on all cylinders. Then you go through a lull. And you know this. This is when you eat a cup of coffee, when you're a little tired in the afternoon, post-lunch. Like you truthfully are dumber at that moment. The studies suggest you're 20% dumber. It's like you drank a six-pack and went to work in the early afternoon. But then you have a rebound. And you're like, right about now, listening to the Will Cain Show. And you know what you are now? You're back to intelligent again, but you're more open to creative concepts and new ideas and connections you hadn't thought about. You might not have been as buttoned down as you were at 10, but you're more open and creative. This is my Tom Brady moment around this part of the day. I'm like, you know what? Stretch? Yeah, I think I could stretch a little more. Maybe tomatoes aren't good for you.
Thanks for that lesson, but let's go back to you drinking the Tom Brady Kool-Aid, okay? You're more apt to believe in him and take his side on things because just like him, you are into exercise and health and fitness and, you know, trying to beat Father Time in one way or the other. And I just have a feeling if Tom Brady came out with a thing that says, I'm not going to eat chicken anymore, the next day you'd say to Cerruti and Bubba and I, you know what, I'm kind of down on chicken.
Let's put it this way, Smallman. I would be open to it. I'd be like, wonder what's up with chicken. Maybe I need to read into this.
So are you gullible? Like, I'm just confused. Like, you're like false for every fad guy. You be honest. Am I fall for every fad guy? I honestly didn't think you were that impressionable, but you're really impressionable.
Hey, I'm not impressionable to every Tom, Dick, and Harry that walks in the studio and goes,
just
you know what?
Tom.
You ought to
one specific
just
Tom.
This one Tom, right?
This one really, really elite Tom.
Exactly, Smallman. Not every Tom, this Tom, who happens to be the greatest football player of all time and has defeated Father Time. Doesn't he have a documentary coming out about just that?
Tom versus Time.
Tommy
I know you'll be one of the first to get there.
Speaking of Tom, we got not the elite Tom, but another every Tom in Nevada. What's up, Thomas in Nevada? You're on the Will Cain Show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Really enjoyed listening to you these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, man.
Hey, so obviously, again, not taking away anything from LeBron, but what kind of agreeing with you, Tom Brady, he doesn't have 1 year or 2 years or three, not 4, not 5. He's got 7 years on LeBron. And in today's day and age, and as competing at that level, that's another 7 dog years for the level that they're competing at. So he's almost got 49 years on him. So what he's doing at that age is just crazy because of the wear and tear that they put on their bodies.
Thanks for the call, Tom. That's what Darren Woodson said. We just had should be Hall of Famer, and I'm not saying that just because I'm a Dallas Cowboys homer, should be Hall of Famer Darren Woodson in studio. And I asked him which one's more impressive, Tom Brady at the age of 40 or LeBron at the age of 33. And he said Tom at the age of 40 because of the violent nature of the NFL, because of the wear and tear of the NFL. Cerruti has rebutted me with that it's about 15 years for LeBron. It's about the minutes he's put on his legs.
Yeah, I mean, in year 15, like he is, you know, he obviously didn't go to college, so if he did like the Jordan thing, he'd be you know, more, he'd probably be 36, 37 if he had went to college. The only issue I have is that, and I'm not knocking Brady, but he doesn't get hit a ton. Let's not act like whose job is more physically demanding? LeBron carrying a Cavs roster every night, or Tom Brady throwing a ball around a little bit to some receivers?
He can move around in the pocket. It's part of his greatness.
All right, that goes with the TB12
just saying,
method.
If Tom said that you should cuddle more and maybe cuddle with him, you should consider it.
But
I would.
You know what? I might as well.
You might as well.
You're right.
You might as well strive for personal greatness. It's the Will Cain Show presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests are all in the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Straight ahead, would you rather have Matt Patricia or Josh McDaniels if given the choice? I'll tell you what I think, and I'm going to ask Todd McShay. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. What's up, everyone? Will Cain here. Support for the Will Cain podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. With Rocket Mortgage, you can apply simply and understand fully so you can mortgage confidently. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states. NMLS, consumeraccess.org, number 3030. I'm sure both of these guys I'm sure they're both perfectly qualified to be NFL head coaches. But when I look at Matt Patricia and I look at Josh McDaniels, and if I were the New York Giants and I had my pick of the two, the reason I would go with Matt Patricia in the end is this. He's simply done less. He's done more with less. I mean, the number of defensive players that have been out for that New England Patriots defense, and year after year, not having the stalwarts that are on the offensive side of the ball, while Daniels has been tied, and most of his success has been tied to Tom Brady, I find Patricia the the less risky proposition. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Let's bring in Todd McShay on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Get instant gold status at Shell. Join the Fuel Rewards program now at fuelrewards.com/gold. Todd, what is the latest on that you know the New York Giants? Are they leaning towards Patricia right now? Is that who they want to try to bring in?
Honestly, I can't tell you definitively. I mean, I've heard both sides. Talked to a GM not with the Giants recently who was asking just kind of what I knew about Patricia and some different things. So there seems to be a little bit more buzz with him. The only thing I would say is I think there's something too with Josh McDaniels having a little bit more experience and having failed, and then learning from some mistakes. If that makes any sense. I mean, Bill Belichick had some failure early in his career and with the Browns, and learned from some mistakes, and obviously he's gone on to become arguably the greatest coach in the history of the NFL. I'm not saying that either of these guys is going to wind up being Bill Belichick by any stretch. I'm just saying that a lot of times when you have some failure, you learn from the things that you didn't do right, and you kind of go from there. Whereas Patricia, well, he's so awfully intriguing, and you make a great case for him, and players love this dude. I mean, he's relatable, but disciplined and intelligent and creative and all the things that you look for in a coach. There are arguments for both of these guys, and I see both of them becoming head coaches very soon. But I don't know. It's just kind of two different ways to look at it.
I talked to Darren Woodson about this a little bit earlier, but it's funny how some guys get categorized as just coordinators. And you may have been in studio with me and Ryan, and we used to talk about this guy has coordinator face or that guy has coordinator face. And it just kind of whatever the combination of personality characteristics it is, it adds up to, I don't really see that guy in charge. I'm going to be honest with you. A guy that I've heard that about is Pat Shurmur, the offensive coordinator at Minnesota. But he's got a lot of buzz around him, obviously, with what he's done with Case Keenum this year. What do you hear about Pat Shurmur as a head coach, or getting another chance at head coach?
I think you're going to see it. I mean, what he's done, 3 different quarterbacks and having success and being able to win with Case Keenum. I mean, and not just win, but he's playing at a high level. And let's face it, I mean, so many of these coaching hires, the head coaching hires, are about guys that it's an organization you look at and say, can this guy come in and make us better at the quarterback position? Because it's the most important position. So I think I would lump him in as well. I think he's another guy that you're going to see as a head coach. If it's not this, next year, then I would say in the next 2 years.
Should we give Tua a Heisman already? Is he? I mean, what do we do? Do we give him 2? I don't really know what the right thing to do is. How many Heismans should we give Tua?
I know, right? Listen, it was an awesome half, and he seems like the real deal. I haven't talked to anyone who's been around him or spent any time with him that it doesn't have anything but just unbelievable praise for him as a human being, as an individual, the maturity level that he has for his age. And then obviously the skill set when he comes out and lights a spark, and they were able to do things offensively that you haven't seen Alabama do in a long, long time. And you consider, I mean, look, Nick Saban lost 10 draft picks to the NFL last year. Right. 7, Will. Yeah, right. 7 of them in the first 2 rounds. And he loses his offensive coordinator. Say what you want about Lane, but Lane Kiffin can coach offense. And comes back and wins a national championship. Now, I know it was close. They almost didn't get into the playoff, and they could have very easily lost that last game. But still, to lose 10 draft picks, 7 in the first 2 rounds, to lose your offensive coordinator and to bounce back. And the point I'm getting at here is they're going to lose a bunch more. It might be 9, 10 more guys to the draft this year. But look how many freshmen, especially a wide receiver, and now a quarterback.
Running back.
And running back, yeah.
Offensive line, how many everywhere.
Dudes they have that are young, that are returning. I mean, you can make an argument that they could certainly will be better. You would expect them to be significantly better on the offensive side of the ball next year. And it seems like every year they're able to reload on defense no matter what they lose on that side of the ball. So what happens with Tua, we'll see. I mean, he's got to win the job, which I think we all assume he's going to at this point. But that was some special stuff, man. It was some special stuff that second half, and it's hard not to get excited about the future if you're a Bama fan and just a football fan in general with Tua.
Todd McShay on the show, Pennzoil Performance Line. So Kuiper, I think he's dropping a mock draft tomorrow, right? How do you back it up? Like, how long do you let him sit in the limelight before you say, no, here comes mine?
Well, with Kuiper, it's always a show. He's, I think it's
a lot of flash with that guy.
Yeah, man, it's all sizzle. No, I'm joking. I think it's next week, actually.
Is it next week? Okay.
Yeah, the point is when I have a mock draft, I have to come down to Bristol. When he has a mock draft, we both have to come to Bristol, and we have to have a 2-hour prime time. I think it's 8 to 10 p.m. show next Thursday. Next Thursday night is when it is. So,
all right.
Yeah, it'll be next week, and I think we just got an email recently. We're supposed to do a podcast next Thursday morning. We got an email from one of our guys, and he said, you know what, you guys are going to have to do it on a different day because Mel's booked from 8 a.m. till 9 p.m.
You're always welcome on the Will Cain Show to promote yours for 3 hours, McShay. You come in.
I appreciate that, bud.
I only got like a minute, okay? So I spent all fall with you, at least once a week. And we talked about 3 quarterbacks, right? We talked about Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, and Josh Rosen. How high are you putting Baker Mayfield now?
He's tough. He's a tough one because the intangibles are exceptional. I'm talking about football character, football intelligence, and just the way he leads. He's very accurate. He's got the biggest concern, honestly, and you saw it in that game against Georgia, is when he takes a beating, he's just not a big dude. I know he's thick and strong for his size, but in games where he has taken a beating physically, he has struggled to maintain a high level of play. And you saw that in the second half, and you actually saw late in the fourth quarter and in overtime the coach take the ball out of his hands. So I wonder, first of all, if there was something wrong with him from was there something more medically going on that we don't know about, or is it just that he couldn't perform at a high level anymore? It's something to keep an eye on. To answer your question, I think he's a first-round pick. I don't know that he's going to be a top 10 pick, but I think somewhere probably in that first-round range.
All right, cool. That's what I wanted to hear from you, man. Thanks. Hope to have you around
You got
soon.
it, bud.
Okay.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right, straight ahead. I'm going to tell you more. Okay, I haven't really laid out my case for you, but this is not an easy call, Patricia versus McDaniels. I'm going to tell you why ultimately I take the guy who has done more with less. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. The genius of Bill Belichick is not his gruff personality. The genius of Bill Belichick is not how ruthless he is in cutting what a seeming superstar on the roster because he's got somebody ready to replace them. The genius of Bill Belichick isn't his monotone press conference and that he's not ready to deal with your nonsense. The genius of Bill Belichick is that he's something different every week, every play. He adjusts. He adjusts his roster. He adjusts his game plan. Week to week, you don't know what you're going to get with the New England Patriots. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. That genius is about adjustments. The New York Giants are reportedly interested in Matt Patricia as their next head coach. So are the Detroit Lions, by the way. He is the front runner, supposedly, for both jobs. He has a personal relationship with the general manager of the Detroit Lions, and they are seemingly waiting on the New York Giants, which is Patricia's preferred job. So will the Giants offer the job to Patricia? If not, the Detroit Lions appear ready to swoop in. But the question is, the Giants might want McDaniels, Josh McDaniels, the New England Patriots offensive coordinator. Why? Because they have the second pick in the NFL draft and they have to develop a quarterback. McDaniels has a reputation as somebody who can develop a quarterback. I'm here to tell you that I would go for Matt Patricia. If I were headed to the New York Giants, if I were Dave Gettleman, Matt Patricia would be my choice. Give me a call, 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Would you rather have Matt Patricia or Josh McDaniels as your head coach? Here's my case for Matt Patricia. Bill Belichick's genius is adjustments. That has been something that Matt Patricia has shown throughout his career. He has led the New England Patriots defense for 7 years. Over that time, they have been a top 10 in points per game allowed defense every one of those years. They've ranked as high as first and as low as 10th during that time, but always in the top 10 for points per game. The one consistency throughout that time period is shifting, changing personnel, adapting to losing your best players, adapting schemes and coverages. This season, I sat next to Ryan Russillo the first 4 weeks of the season. We talked about what's wrong with the New England Patriots. What's wrong with their defense? They're getting torched. They're getting torched by the Chiefs. They're getting torched by the Bills. They're getting torched. Has the torch passed in New England because their defense can't play up to par. But Patricia made adjustments. No one has accused the New England Patriots defensive side of the equation of having superstars. They're putting a pass rush together with guys like Trey Flowers. And yet, here they are, 5th ranked in points per game allowed in the NFL. That ability to adjust, that ability to do more with less gives me inspiration that Patricia is the heir apparent to Bill Belichick. Now, I understand that Bill Belichick is his head coach. I understand that Bill Belichick can help. But the truth of the matter is, Bill Belichick, and I heard this last night on Fitz in Spain. I was listening to Fitz in Spain last night, and they had Howie Long on as a guest. And he said the reason that Bill Belichick is the greatest coach in the NFL is because he is basically the coach for every position. He could coach quarterbacks. He could coach wide receivers. He could coach defensive line, secondary. It doesn't matter. He would be the best coach at any one of those positions on the roster. So don't tell me that Patricia's had this great crutch. Everyone else has as well, including Josh McDaniels. Now, I'm not taking anything away from McDaniel. He's done a hell of a job. The problem is that job is directly tied to Tom Brady. How good can I know Josh is when every bit of his success has come hip pocket tied to Tom Brady? He might be great. I know Tom Brady is great. So I take the guy who's done more with less, not the guy who's done more with more. I take the guy who can adjust, just like Belichick. I give the job to Matt Patricia. Bruce, on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. You're on the Will Cain Show. What's up, Bruce?
Hey, Will. How you doing, man? First time, long time.
Thank you.
You said Brady has had McDaniels has had the benefit of having Brady. Well, Patricia's had the benefit of having Belichick, who's pretty widely considered a great defensive mind more than anything else. So how much of the Patriots' defensive success do you think is attributable to Patricia, and how much of it is, because Belichick is, a defensive wizard? I'll hang up and listen.
I think it's a great point, Bruce. I mean, I just said, how do I separate Brady from McDaniel? And you're saying to me, how do you separate Patricia from Belichick? And I don't know that you can. But I would say on the McDaniels-Brady side, you have to add Belichick to that side of the equation as well. How do you separate McDaniels from Brady from Belichick? Because as I just said, Howie Long pointing out on Fitz in Spain last night, Belichick, although he is a defensive genius, he's a football genius at this point. He could coach offensive line. He could be the quarterback's coach, the tight end coach. So I guarantee you he's played a role in McDaniels' development as well. JR in Texas, you're on the Will Cain Show. What's up, JR?
JR, Will, I agree with you. I think Matt Patricia would be the best choice because the Bengals, not the Bengals, the Chiefs run over the Patriots, and they got it back and got everything righted. And I enjoy your show, and thanks for taking my call.
Where are you, JR? What town?
Waco.
All right, JR. Thanks for the call. Yeah. Let me just say this. Matt Patricia, I heard Mark Schlereth. I'm dropping names all over the place. I'm dropping Howie Long. I'm dropping Mark Schlereth. I'll pick them up on my way out. I heard Mark Schlereth say this. When Josh McDaniels went to Denver for his one failed experiment as a head coach, he was nicknamed Hurricane Josh because he came in and essentially attempted to act like Belichick. As I started this out, I said, Belichick's genius isn't his rudeness. Belichick's genius isn't his cold-bloodedness. But that's the part that people emulate. That's what Josh emulated and lost his team. Lost their personalities. With his personalities, it didn't mesh, and they called him Hurricane Josh because he came in and tore everything up. Now, reportedly, an amazing piece, by the way, by Dan Pompey on Bleacher Report, Josh McDaniels has learned a ton of lessons. In fact, and I love this, you guys want to make fun of my self-improvement stuff, my Tom Brady, I love trying to make yourself better each day. Reportedly, Josh McDaniels created a spreadsheet when he was fired from Denver entitled Lessons Learned and kept a spreadsheet of lessons learned. I'll bet you Josh McDaniels is ready to adjust and do it right. But right now, the genius that I see from Belichick, adjustments, is what I see in Patricia. Tweet the show through the 100flowers.com Twitter feed at Will Cain Show. Starting off the year with a little romance is easy at 100flowers.com. Right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses for only $29.99, you'll get another dozen absolutely free. To order, go to 1-800flowers.com/ESPN. Let me tell you I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about another coach that tried to emulate Belichick, and it failed miserably. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. When Eric Mangini took the job as the head coach of the New York Jets, by his own account, he tried to act like Bill Belichick. He tried to be Bill Belichick, and it simply did not work for him. If you ever listen to Eric Mangini talk, and I've heard him on Fox Sports, he's talked on these airwaves when he was here with Ryan Russillo, it's his one great regret, he said, that when he went down, he didn't go down swinging as himself. Be you. Do you. Don't do an imitation of somebody else. And most people that have tried to do an imitation of Bill Belichick have failed. The Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch to Progressive can save an average of $620. Thus was the story for Josh McDaniels and his Denver experience as well. But after losing his job with the Denver Broncos, Josh McDaniels called his dad reportedly, this according to a piece from Dan Pompey on Bleacher Report. Dan Pompey, thank you, Bubba. On Bleacher Report. His dad's a legendary high school football coach in Ohio, and he said, write down every lesson you learned. Write down every mistake you made. And Josh McDaniels made an Excel spreadsheet called Lessons Learned. I have every faith that Josh McDaniels will be able to learn from those lessons to become a great football coach in the NFL. But right now, if I were hiring, Matt Patricia and his ability to adjust would be my choice. Tim Hasselbeck, friend of the show, wristband-wearing member of the clubhouse, feels differently.
I think Josh McDaniels, because when he has prior head coaching experience. I think Patricia, this is going to sound bad, but based on appearance, based on the T-shirt he was wearing after the Super Bowl a year ago, I think there's some people that wonder a little bit about a guy as a leader of an organization, in the face of your organization, and somebody that would make decisions the way that he's made. I think those things matter.
So, Tim, you think that brands him a little bit?
100% it does. I don't think there's any doubt. And so I think McDaniels would in that environment. And I think that
there are some, Bubba, you've pointed this out. You've told me, Bubba, you're surprised that the New York Giants of all franchises would consider the guy who wore the Goodell T-shirt that Patricia did.
Well, a lot of people are saying, the Mara family is close to Goodell. So is Goodell going to, would they be happy if they hire a coach who did wore the shirt making fun of Goodell?
It doesn't bother me. In fact, you know what?
It bothers Goodell quite a bit, it sounds like.
Yeah, I know. What I'm saying is if I were in that front office, if I were running the New York Giants, I get what Tim is saying. I get that appearances matter. Professionalism matters. You're the leader now. I don't know. There's a gruffness to Patricia that honestly I sort of like as well. He's got this beard, this sloppiness, and underneath it all, you know what he is? He is a aeronautical engineer. By most accounts, he is the smartest guy in the room, in any room he is in. As you heard Todd McShay earlier, a lot of the players love the guy. I wrote these down. This is what I read about him. Quotes about Matt Patricia. Thinks outside the box, smartest guy in the room, aeronautical engineer. So he wore a Roger Goodell with a clown nose T-shirt, a Barstool Sports T-shirt. So he did that. I will leave you with one last note on this. As a Dallas Cowboy fan, I'm happy with either. I'm just happy the New York Giants aren't hiring Bill Belichick. I'm just happy they're not hiring Nick Saban. I'll take either one. Matt Patricia, Josh McDaniels, thank you. Please, just do not send Bill Belichick into war with Jason Garrett. Please don't do that to us.
Would you want either of them instead of Garrett?
Yes.
Both?
Yes. Would you?
I don't know. I'm not anti-Garrett as much as you are, but
it's time to go. It's time.
I'm McDaniels over Patricia.
Did you see the news today? Offensive line coach, running back coach, wide receiver coach, quarterbacks coach. They fired the whole dang coaching staff except for the offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, and Garrett.
Marinelli are the only ones left, I guess, yeah.
What a model of leadership. You know whose fault it is? Everybody beneath me. I'll tell you who's to blame here. Everybody I picked to work for me. Morons.
I hope you're not going to be like that.
When this thing goes south, and by the way, it's not going south. This thing's a rocket ship to the top. But if it does go south, it will be you folks that fall. I've learned from Jason Garrett. A little bit of breaking news here. Steelers running back Le'Veon Bell has told ESPN's Jeremy Fowler that if the Pittsburgh Steelers attempt to franchise tag him again in 2018, he's playing under a franchise tag this year in 2017, he's prepared to sit out an entire season and even retire if franchise tagged for the second consecutive year. Empty threat. False. Le'Veon Bell will not retire. He will not retire if he doesn't get his money. Now, I'll tell you this. I think Bell has a good argument. He is right now the highest paid running back in the NFL. He makes $12 million a year on average. Devonta Freeman of the Atlanta Falcons, number 2 at $8.2 million. LaShawn McCoy, number 3 at $8 million. Doug Martin, number 4 at $7 million. And Leonard Fournette at $6.7 million. That's yearly average contract, not total contract value. And Le'Veon Bell has a good point. He said, here's his quote, "I'm not going out here getting the ball 400 times if I'm not getting what I feel I'm valued at." This year, Bell has rushed 321 times for 1,291 yards and caught 85 passes for 655 yards. He wants to be valued at more than a running back because he is more than a running back. And I would say Le'Veon Bell is right. He's worth more than simply being paid as a running back. But he's not going to retire. And he's not going to sit out an entire year if he doesn't get that contract.
He's 10th in the league in receptions this year. He has his 85 catches, as you just said, put him in the top 10.
He's amazing.
That proves his argument.
Well, and I don't disagree with that. I think he has a great argument. I think if he wants to be paid as some kind of combination wide receiver running back, he has the history and ability to back it up. I'm just saying his threat is empty.
Yeah, there's zero chance that he's retiring. He's going to pick up his ball and go home?
No, he's not going home. All right. There was one more thing I wanted to do in this segment. What did I say I wanted to do? Remember?
Cam versus Russell.
Yes.
Who can change?
That's right. I want to get into this. Both Russell Wilson and Cam Newton, both of their offensive coordinators have been fired in the past week. Mike Shula was fired from the Carolina Panthers. Darrell Bevell fired from the Seattle Seahawks. Both quarterbacks at a moment where we say, who can change? Who can evolve? Who can develop into the quarterback that we expect them to be? A change in offensive coordinator. Who is this more set to benefit? And I think it's Russ Wilson. I think Wilson is more set to benefit from a change from Darrell Bevell to someone else than Cam Newton. And my argument is at some point, you are what you are. I believe we know what Cam Newton is. I'll bring in Andy Benoit. He can tell us what he thinks, which quarterback and which offensive coordinator could be best primed to succeed in 2018. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Whose career is better set up for success with a change? Cam Newton or Russell Wilson?
Thank you for listening to the Will Cain Podcast. You can listen to the Will Cain Show live weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Will Cain Podcast. This is the Will Cain Podcast on ESPN Radio.
Give me $1,000 and ask me to bet it on who's going to have the better 2018. Russ Wilson or Cam Newton? I'm all in on Russ Wilson. Both players lost their offensive coordinator in the past week. Darrell Bevell in Seattle, Mike Shula in Carolina. They're both quarterbacks about to go through a change in offensive system to some degree. I expect that to benefit Russ Wilson more than Cam Newton. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. One of the guys I respect most, I look at his opinions on Twitter. I look at his opinions on Monday Morning Quarterback, Andy Benoit, now on the Shell Pinzo Performance Line. Andy, I watched you, when Mike Shula was fired, I think I saw you say, first of all, you weren't that big on it. You said Mike Shula's been great for Cam Newton. Then when Norv Turner was hired, you're like, this is great for Cam Newton. How much can Cam Newton actually change from the guy we know he is at this point?
Probably not very much. He's in his late 20s, and where he's a little bit inconsistent as a passer, and that doesn't usually work its way out of guys. Sometimes you'll see that guys will become more consistent in their accuracy if you change systems and give them a quicker strike type of throwing system, but that doesn't fit Newton's skill set. That's kind of what they learned early on this season, and what I like about Norv Turner coming in is he's not going to do a lot of that. I mean, everybody does that some, but Norv Turner is an old-school, deep drop-back passing coordinator, and that's how you have to play with Cam Newton because that takes advantage of his arm strength. That lets him work the ball down the seams, deep to the sidelines at times. Newton is a classic power thrower. He'll never be a precision accuracy thrower, and you have to build your offense accordingly.
Power thrower. So it's almost like that old Raiders maxim, right? That they wanted a guy who could drop back and haul it off 30, 40 yards downfield. That's the offensive system you could see Cam Newton flourishing in?
Yes, I mean, that will be part of it. And I think also when you talk about power throwing or velocity in the NFL, a lot of it's also what windows can you target. So much of the passing game, and especially with Norv Turner will take a 15-yard route and make it 18 yards a lot of the time. He's just a little bit stretched vertically. And so much of NFL passing concepts in that kind of approach take place 15 to 18 yards downfield, and you get tight windows there, especially because the ball has to travel further, so the windows have more time to close. So velocity, when people evaluate it within the league, the first thing they look for is, can you fit the ball into tight spaces? Now, the lack of accuracy becomes a little bit of an issue there, but we're talking timing throws and strong arm throws between the field numbers for Newton. The next thing they look at is depth of passing. Can you stretch it downfield 50, 60 yards? Or as your example, 30 or 40 yards. I think Newton could be very consistent doing that, relatively speaking.
One of the arguments always used in Cam Newton's favor is, first of all, they said this marriage with Mike Shula has to end at some point. The other is that Cam Newton has said, they've always said, he doesn't have the weapons that other quarterbacks have. When the truth is, if I look at the two, I look at Russell Wilson, this is the guy I look at thinking, well, a change of offensive coordinator there, finding a running game for him, that's the guy who has a real chance to prosper with a new offensive system. What do you think about what Russ could use in Seattle?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Russell Wilson as a complementary piece, which is really what he was when Marshawn Lynch was there, I think that's where he's at his most dangerous. And that also is more conducive to some of his extended play, his improvisation that makes him so unique. I understand why Seattle made a change. What will be interesting to see, Will, is how much of what Darrell Bevell did was he catering to Wilson? Because you and I have talked before that Wilson is so unconventional in a number of ways that you really have to build your offense with the idea in mind of, okay, what happens if he breaks down the play? Then what do we do? And that's so different than how coaches are used to thinking. So I'll be interested to see if they bring in a coach who's going to be flexible and open to that, and I imagine they will. If they don't want to do that, if they're doing this to instill more discipline in Wilson, then they need to bring in a coach who runs a quick strike passing offense and get the ball out of his hands early, which I know goes against his running around, but he's had success with that before. But however they slice it up, that coach has to be a run-minded coach as well, because Wilson with a running game, that's where he's at his most dangerous.
I would imagine you're going to answer me this with, well, it depends on which offensive system, it depends on which team, but which of the available, and it could be an impressive group of available quarterbacks this offseason, would you prefer? Would it be a Kirk Cousins if he's available, Alex Smith if he's available? I know you're big on Tyrod Taylor. But there's more. Eli, who would be your choice? Andy Benoit.
Yeah, well, are we counting Drew Brees in that? Do you think he'll be available?
No, we can't do that, can we? There's no way.
I don't. I mean, technically he's a free agent, but I don't think he'll be out there. Of those guys you mentioned, I think it will be those kind of players. I think you could do the most with Kirk Cousins. He has the best throwing mechanics of those guys in terms of quick strike, ball getting out of your hand quickly. His arm strength is not great, but it's certainly average enough, and I mean that in a good way. So I would probably say Kirk Cousins, but you're right. All those guys you mentioned, they are very system dependent, with the exception of maybe Eli, and I don't think he's going to be out there.
Now, I'm going to have to, as you were breaking down Russell Wilson, it made me think about this. So I'm going to have to ask you this homer question. Have you broken down Dak yet? Have you broken down his 2017?
Oh, yeah, I saw every snap of him. I thought he looked I don't think he was as bad as we would guess based on how the Cowboys offense as a whole regressed. I don't think he regressed a whole lot. He probably didn't progress the way you would have hoped, all things considered. But I like Dak Prescott's game. I think he's another guy who's very good as a complementary player. These quarterbacks that get outside the pocket and can throw on the move, they're the ones that fit best in running offenses because those run games correlate so well with those moving passes and those moving pockets. And I think Prescott in that kind of system, if Ezekiel Elliott's there the whole year and they've got that offensive line, I think he's an excellent fit for them long-term still.
Well, I've seen the stats, Andy, and I'm not going to be able to remember all of the examples off the top of my head, but Scott Linehan quarterbacks under Scott Linehan going into their third year. I know Matt Stafford is one of them. They've experienced some kind of like explosion in productivity their third year with Scott Linehan. So part of me, as an admitted fan of the Dallas Cowboys, is excited. Well, okay, maybe this is the year that Linehan and Prescott click. But on the other hand, there's a complete exodus on the offensive side of the ball of every assistant coach under the coordinator level, from quarterback coach to wide receiver coach to offensive line coach. I don't know what I'm supposed to make of what's evolving in Dallas on the offense and its impact on Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I don't either. And it's interesting. A lot of teams have had a mass exodus of assistant coaches, position coaches, which we overlook those all the time when we're evaluating players. Those are the guys that are with the players all day long. They're the ones teaching them the nuts and bolts of everything. They're very important. And it'd be, I guess Dak Prescott has a good working relationship with Kellen Moore, who's had this reputation as a quarterback savant mentally, dating back to his days in college. But it'll be interesting to see a lot of change around him. Will, my concern with Dallas's offense overall starts at wide receiver. One of the biggest differences this year, and it was kind of true the last few years, but defense has started to play them differently now because of this, is Des Bryant doesn't run well anymore. And he's not even as effective on in-breaking routes, which is always his game. He's really not a number one receiver, and it's starting to impact the way teams line up and play against Dallas. So I think that'll be a big deal this offseason. Is what do they do with Bryant? They owe him $16.5 million. About half of that's dead money if you cut him. Is that worth it to them? And then who do they draft? Who do they sign? Because I think something needs to change there.
All right, Andy, listen, I enjoy your stuff. I hope to have you part of the show going forward.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Will.
All right, it's Monday Morning Quarterbacks. Andy Benoit on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. Straight ahead, I think the Kevin Durant era is here. It's on our doorstep. He's about to emerge as the best player in the NBA, and you know who that comes at the expense of. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. Hi, everyone. Will Cain here. Support for the Will Cain podcast comes from our friends at Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. Chances are you're confident when it comes to your work, your hobbies, and your life. Rocket Mortgage gives you that same level of confidence when it comes to buying a home or refinancing your existing home loan. Rocket Mortgage is simple, allowing you to fully understand all the details and be confident you're getting the right mortgage for you. To get started, go to rocketmortgage.com/will. Equal housing lender, licensed in all 50 states, NMLS consumeraccess.org number 3030. Sometimes it's hard to see what's going on before your eyes. Sometimes it's hard to see things happening in motion. Sometimes you have to wait till it's obvious and safe, and then it's clear to call it. That's how I think genius is often treated. I mean, Van Gogh only sold one painting in his entire lifetime. Einstein was called a dullard when he was young. Winston Churchill failed 6th grade and never won a single political office until he ended up running Great Britain and managing it and leading it through the biggest war this planet has seen. Sometimes that's just the way it goes. Sometimes it's called being a hot take artist. But Kevin Durant is in the process, right before your eyes, right before our very eyes, of taking the throne from LeBron James. But be clear about what I'm saying. He has not taken it. He is not better right now. But in fact, what I'm telling you is, on or about May 31st of 2018, that torch will pass. On or about May 31st of 2018, he'll snatch that crown from LeBron James' head. Just last night, Kevin Durant scored his 20,000.
Wow.
It's tough. Will you say it for me?
20,000th NBA point.
Thank you. Joining a list of names that includes an exclusive club here, just the likes of Wilt Chamberlain, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, yes, LeBron James, and now Kevin Durant. Because so much of Durant's career has existed in the shadow of LeBron James, we've not yet been able to fully appreciate how great Kevin Durant is. But as LeBron James, in his 33rd year, begins to look at a more doubtful future, and Kevin Durant looks at an ascendancy, fresh off a 2017 NBA Finals MVP, a 2017 NBA championship, we see the direction these arrows are pointed. Now, I was that Van Gogh. I was that Churchill during the 2017 NBA Finals when I was on the road with First Take in Cleveland, in Golden State. I told Stephen A., I said, to this morning, look, you can be second take, all right? Because I'm first take. You can be safe. You can call it when it's clear you're not going to be wrong. But I'm going to tell you now because I can see it happening before my eyes. Kevin Durant, like a race car pulling up beside LeBron James's race car, is passing LeBron for best player in the NBA. It might not have happened just yet. He might be at the rear quarter panel. He might be up door to door, or maybe the front quarter panel now is inching ahead of the other. But by the end of this year, by the time the NBA Finals have convinced us with his second NBA championship, it'll be much clearer to everyone. Kevin Durant is emerging as the best player in the NBA. I admit, LeBron has put up an amazing rebuttal at the age of 33. His season, incredible. But I also know that whether or not it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, around age 34, there's not a cliff like Max Kellerman likes to talk about with quarterbacks in the NFL, not a cliff like the one he's projected for Tom Brady, but rather like a ski slope that starts to point downhill, while Kevin Durant's still climbing a mountain and racking up rings along the way.
There's somebody who is on this bandwagon with you, and it's not Albert Einstein or Winston Churchill, like you mentioned before. Which is, by the way, it's kind of ridiculous that you compared yourself to Albert Einstein and Winston Churchill.
I thought it was
just right off the bat. Like, way to be humble.
Humble yourself!
Seriously. But no, there's a guy, NBA Countdown. A guy shares a similar opinion with you. Actually, many opinions. And I want to know if you think it's a good or a bad thing that you guys think the same way.
Who is it?
It's Paul Pierce.
Oh, okay. So you're offended that I've compared myself to Van Gogh. Admittedly, I need to.
Humble yourself!
But now I'm sharing a seat with the great one, Paul Pierce. This is what he said last night on NBA Countdown.
I'm going to say one thing about Kevin. He is probably the most elite scorer in NBA history. When you look top to bottom, let's say guys like, you got Will Chamberlain, of course, did a lot of things inside. Karl Malone, Jordan, mid-range inside. But KD shoots the three. He's elite in transition. He gets to the line. He can score inside.
So the best scorer in the history.
Here we go again.
Of the history.
Just the most dynamic scorer in the history. I mean, when you talk about a guy 7 feet, shoot threes, he's a better shooter than Jordan, LeBron. Guys, let's look at all the guys at the top. He's just as good at it as them in transition. He's just as good at this as getting to the line. He's just as good as in the post. So when I look at all the offensive categories,
we can't keep talking about just as good.
I mean, he's elite. He's elite in those categories.
I mean, he's definitely elite.
You know, Michael Eric Jeffrey Jordan played in the NBA, right?
The three is
you said the most complete and best scorer.
Dynamic.
Shooter and scorer.
You keep changing words.
They are onto something here, man. They've got it.
I can't get enough of Beetle. I love how she just, what'd you say here, the earmuffs?
She said you keep changing the word.
Because he did.
He's so good at this. He's good at, man, I wrote him down. Kevin Durant is the most elite scorer of all time. No. You're not listening to me. What I'm saying is he's the most dynamic scorer. Listen. I said he's elite. Okay, listen. When it comes to three-point shooting, taking it to the hoop, scoring in the post, he's just as good. Just at that point, Chauncey's like, we're not talking about just as good. You just made an argument that he's elite of all time. And Paul, you can't catch him. You cannot catch him. He's going to move that ball. He's going to slide it over here. Oh, you think you got him? Slice the onion this way.
Did you call bank? I call game. Did you call bank? I call game.
He's the truth. He's the truth.
But is that... He's moving the target. He's not saying anything specific because he's not being definitive about any one of those points. He just keeps moving.
No, you're not keeping up. That's the thing.
Oh, I'm not keeping up. I don't get it. I'm sorry. That's my bad.
Here, hold on. He educate
me.
Okay, he went on the jump today to clarify this because apparently there's a lot of people like you that get confused. Listen.
I'm just saying the way he goes about it. I mean, of course, these people score more points probably on average, but when you look at his total package, he's 7 feet tall. He can handle like a guard. I mean, tell me what player in NBA history at 7 feet, you know, you had Dirk who transcended the position.
Yeah, but the question isn't who is the best 7-footer. The question is...
But the way he does it at his size is unique and something we've never seen. The three, that separates them. None of them. Jordan, Kobe, Malone, Kareem. Correct. None of them can shoot the ball like him, and he's a 7-footer, putting it on the ground, playing like a point guard. Who can we say on that top 5 list scores the way he does?
So we have gone over 2 clips. He has moved from elite to all-time to dynamic to just as good, back to elite. Then he says it's the way he goes about it. Then he mentions and puts in 7-footers, and then he mentions the three-point line.
Somehow your boy Dirk gets brought into it.
Dirk got in there. Malone got in there. Because you know what happened? The truth realized when he brought up 7-footer shooting, he's like, I got to mention Dirk. Forgot Forgot about Turk.
The more I hear it, the more I love everything about it.
He keeps, you say he keeps moving the ball. What I think he does is he slices the onion thinner and thinner. You can't get him.
You think he's a genius, basically.
I love it. I love it.
Keep you on your toes.
I saw him do it with point guards. I saw him say Russell Westbrook's the best point guard in the NBA. And Chauncey and Jalen lost their minds. And he said, what I'm saying is he's the best scoring point guard in the NBA. And they're like, what about Steph? And he's like, what I'm saying is he's the best scoring true point guard in the NBA. Because Curry's not a true point guard, and Chris Paul is not a scoring point guard, so he's the best. I'll take these two concepts and put them together, and then I've got just the perfect concoction. That's Russ.
So he's trying to lock himself into a very specific thing every time he gives a take.
You just can't nail him down.
No, yeah, you can't.
He's really good at this. He's really good at this. So is Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, he's doing it, guys. He's doing it.
By the way, you need a Max Kellerman-like timetable for this prediction. Because 18 months is a little bit too long.
Well, do I get to the end of the month?
I think you get, 5 months of the finals?
Well, like Max, I want to the end of the month.
So end of the month.
I'm going to scramble all the way to the last moment and say I get to whatever my prediction is, it'll be at the end of that month.
I love it.
That's when the check will cash. The Will Cain Show is presented by Progressive Insurance. Straight ahead, your calls, 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN. Can't you see it? Can't you see what's happening before your eyes? Kevin Durant is passing LeBron James. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
It'll be inbounded by Benoit. Looks, lobs inbounds to Bronzianski. In the front court, here's Fisher driving on Coleman off the glass. Missed it! Rebound, Texas! Ball game! Longhorns win it! Jalen Fisher had a chance. Laid it off the glass and missed it off the rim. And the Longhorns win in double overtime, 99-98.
There's your call on Longhorn IMG Sports Network last night as the Texas Longhorns scored an emotional Big 12 win over TCU. I bring that up for two reasons. Number one, I was up late, and didn't get much sleep because I watched that to the very end in double overtime. Number two, it was an amazingly, incredibly emotional game. Why? Because yesterday, Texas' star guard, the second best player on the roster after Mo Bamba, who broke his wrist in December, returned to action in January, felt sick and lethargic through 2 games, finally got himself into the hospital and was diagnosed with leukemia. Andrew Jones is now fighting for his life instead of fighting on the basketball court. And the Texas Longhorns fought for him last night with AJ1 signs all throughout the arena, Jones Strong T-shirts on various people in the stands, and on hashtags across Twitter. We send our thoughts, our prayers. If you think. If you pray. Whatever you do, think of Andrew Jones. Pray for Andrew Jones because he's an incredible young man who has quite a fight ahead of him. And I will now acknowledge this kind of criticism of me because I want to be truthful. I want to go checked. And here's Cody Weingart on Twitter. This whole ahead of the curve thing on Durant you're doing is because he's a Longhorn. Topics like this is where Russillo is missed. Take off those Texas shades for one topic, Mr. Truth. It could be a little bit. I mean,
I thought about it. I'm not going to lie. Because you are a big Texas homer guy. You bring up the Cowboys, you bring up Texas, you bring up the Mavs every time. But you always talk about how that's a prism through the way that you see sports. So I get that. But I do think you are biased a little bit here.
Can I tell you something? People that pretend like they're not biased are pretending like they're truthful.
I'm not biased.
You're a liar then.
No.
Here's the thing about media. Like, everyone on this earth has bias. You have a political bias. You have a philosophical bias. You have a cultural bias. You have a geographic bias. You have a sports bias. All you can do is try to be honest about it. The people you think are being objective and aren't being biased, I promise you this. I've been at those desks. I've been in those production meetings. I've talked to the people that put those shows together. I've hung out with the people that talk in front of those microphones. They have bias. They're not magicians. They don't make it go away because they put their I'm on TV now coat. You can't just make it wish away. If our job in the media is to tell the truth, you might just start with what your biases are. And then people can take what you say seriously and discount it. If you want to discount my KD argument because I love the Longhorns, you can. You're wrong, but you can. I still think it stands. I still think it's true, Ronnie. I still think it's true even though I love the Longhorns. KD is passing LeBron.
Okay, well, let me ask you this here. The only thing, as of right now, that's passing LeBron in the NBA is his hairline. So what do you think the worst team in the East is right now?
What is it? What, you got jokes and quizzes? What is your point?
Well, my point is that you take the worst team in the East, you put LeBron on it, they make it to the finals. You take the worst team in the East, you put KD on it, they don't even make it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Well, but I mean, okay, it's a fun hypothetical, and I think you're right about LeBron. But why do you think KD can't take the worst team in the finals in the East to the finals?
It's in 2007, LeBron had nobody on the Cavs. He took them to the finals.
We're talking about right now. No, we're not talking about 2007. We're talking about right now.
Because LeBron's just more of a complete player. LeBron can make everybody better, do this, do that. KD, he can only do this, but he can't do that.
All right, thanks for the call, Ronnie. Here's the thing. We're talking about right now. I'm not taking away LeBron's legacy. I'm not taking away his last decade. I'm not taking away his place in the hierarchy of all-time players. I'm not doing any of those things. I'm not taking away 2007 or 11 when he lost to the Mavericks. Or I'm not taking away any of these experiences from him. I'm only talking about right now. And when you tell me LeBron's a complete player, you're right. But if you tell me KD's not, you're wrong. KD leads. He's second in the league, tied for second in the league in blocks. He's become an incredibly efficient and excellent defensive player this season. And what more, he's doing it to LeBron. And that has to count for something. He hit that three-pointer in the finals last year on LeBron. He did that to LeBron. On Christmas morning, Cavaliers-Warriors, those defensive stops, you can call them fouls if you want, you can call them blocks if you want. He did that to LeBron. KD wants it. He's trying to take it. And another finals, another championship, another MVP, it'll be his. Mo in Atlanta, you're on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio.
Well, I have to agree with you. Thank you for taking my call, by the way. I have to agree with you. And I'm not a KD fan.
I can't hear you, Mo, except that you said you agree with me, which is always cool. That's fun.
Yeah, the thing that you don't understand, what have you seen from LeBron that there's a decline? He's averaging 27, 9, and 8. Yeah, Durant won in the finals last year, but that's because you're going to sit here and tell me that was an equal playing field?
Listen. What I'm telling you is this. We know that KD's arc is doing this, right? Can you deny that? Just
I'm not sure it's going up. It's high.
Oh, get out of town.
You think he's getting better year after year?
There's no doubt. Cerruti, he's second in the league in blocks. He's become more efficient.
He's a better defensive player, for sure. Where has LeBron dropped off? Other than not really caring that much about the regular season.
I'm not going to argue LeBron's on this big drop-off. What I've told you is this. He's 33, and most of the time the drop-off for players, be it Kareem or Kobe or Jordan, starts at around age 34.
But it hasn't started.
And I didn't say he's past him yet. I said it's happening this season. It's happening right now. And I gave you a date.
But the only reason
I don't need to the end of the month.
I said
March
you're saying this is because you think he's going to win the title this year, which is not some wild statement. Yeah, the Warriors are probably going to win the title this year, and they're going to be the same player then. 5 months from now.
You don't know that.
I pretty much do.
You don't know that. When KD does it to LeBron again in the finals, you still going to act
with
like
a better
it's not happening?
team?
To LeBron. You can't hold KD's team against him.
Yes, I can.
Why?
If he was doing this in OKC...
Are you going to take away LeBron's Miami championships because the team that was with him?
No, because it was way more of an equal playing field with those teams. This Warriors team is way better than any team we've ever seen.
LeBron joined a super team in Miami, but those count full for him. But KD joins Golden State. Yes, he joins a super team, but they're counted as half championships.
If Durant did this in OKC, it would be totally different.
What I'm saying is he's the most dynamic player in the league right now.
He's definitely elite. He's definitely an elite player.
I'm saying
3-point shooter.
Of 7-footers.
Dirk is one of those guys.
There's Dirk as well. I'm saying, see, you're not keeping up. That's the problem. He's the best true scorer, dynamic scorer. Will Cain Show. Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Homes Insurance. Get your quote on Progressive.com today. All right, Blake Bortles, the dog pile gets higher. Everybody wants to jump on Blake because he had the temerity to mention the name LeBron. And I have to tell you something. Somebody on our show staff is leaving already. 6 days in. We'll tell you who. Ahead. It's the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app. You're not unique. You don't have some big clanging sound going on from underneath because you are also saying Blake Bortles is trash. Okay? Jarrell Casey? Okay? Random generic media member who gets to the top of a dog pile and goes, me too. Blake Bortles is not very good. And Blake's had it, okay? He's had it. He knows your game. This is Blake Bortles talking about all the flack he's been getting from different players and media members across the NFL.
Yeah, it'll probably never stop, man. There's people that think LeBron James sucks, so if that happens, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that always think I suck.
And what happened? They dogpiled Blake Bortles for that, too. Why? Because how dare Blake Bortles compare himself to LeBron James? How dare he utter his name and LeBron James' name in the same breath? Huh! Blake Bortles thinking he's LeBron James. That is not what he did. In fact, what he did, I think, was fairly self-deprecating. Listen to it again. He says, if they criticize the greatest, or, maybe in a race car tie race with Kevin Durant greatest, if they criticize him, they're going to criticize me.
Yeah, it'll probably never stop, man. There's people that think LeBron James sucks, so if that happens, I'm sure there'll be a lot of people that always think I suck.
But here we are. You didn't hear that, Strudy, did you, and go, look at Blake comparing himself to LeBron. You didn't do that. Tell me you didn't do that.
I don't think I did initially say, oh, he's but not in a negative way. Like, I didn't knock him for it. I actually liked him for it. I love Bortles. I like that he has this, I don't care attitude anymore. When did Blake, there are plenty of crappy players in the NFL. Why did he become, the punching bag for all of them?
Because it got easy, honestly. Because one person did it, and I don't remember who the first was. I think a Seattle Seahawks, was Earl Thomas? Earl Thomas said something.
Our boy Michael Bennett, didn't he?
Somebody called him garbage. I think it was Earl Thomas. And then once one person breaks the seal, it's easy for everybody to run through and start dogpiling it. And that's the point. It's like, we get it. We get it, everybody. Blake Bortles isn't very good. It's neither brave nor insightful for you to now talk about how much trash he is. In fact, it looks a little petty. In fact, it looks a little cowardly. In fact, especially after he just beats you, it looks weak. It looks weak. We'll see how Blake Bortles performs this weekend when the Jacksonville Jaguars take on the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'll be surprised along with you if he puts up some amazing performance and makes a game out of it with the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's no point in riding him throughout it. Speaking of quarterbacks playing this weekend, Case Keenum and his Minnesota Vikings taking on Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints. I'll give you my picks tomorrow. Tune in tomorrow to the Will Cain Show. I went 2-2 last weekend. I hung all my hopes on the New Orleans Saints. I hung all my hopes on the only Hall of Fame quarterback in the NFC. But Minnesota Vikings head coach Mike Zimmer said his quarterback has something that might not everybody have. Listen.
He's pretty much charged up all the time, so I don't have to worry about him getting too much more than what he is. He's he's an excitable guy, but he's always excitable, so I don't see that being much of a thing. The thing I appreciate about him, besides his big is that he pays attention to detail. He studies. He works real hard in preparation, and so I think all those things come into a factor.
Zimmer cracked himself up there.
I can't believe he said that.
Why? I can't believe you guys told me I can't say that. I've been trying to use every euphemism around the thing. It's so descriptive of somebody. And when you're trying to say that about someone.
That doesn't make you uncomfortable?
Huh?
I was like, ugh, when I heard that.
I mean, give me the euphemism for that. If you want to say that.
Onions
doesn't work the same way.
You're right, because it's literally if you say, stones is another one.
Guts. People use guts.
Yep.
You got a lot of guts.
The intestinal fortitude is one that people like nowadays, especially on first take.
And none of them are as descriptive and evoke the exact thing you're trying to say like that phrase. It's like asking me to, paint the Mona Lisa, but giving me a 3-inch wide paintbrush. Yeah, I mean, I can roughly sketch out what it's supposed to look like, but it's not going to get to the exact fine point that I'm trying to make. There's another word that also is off limits, and it's so perfect. It described a certain kind of guy so well, and I've been called this kind of guy once or twice. And there's no euphemism for it as well. You've told me tool is what I should go with. Yes?
Right.
Yes. Thanks, Booger. But again, tool is like you're asking me to pin the tail on the shoulder of the donkey. I was like, yeah, I mean, I was on the donkey, but it's not where I wanted it to go. All right, I got sad news. 6 days into the Will Cain Show and somebody's leaving the Willisha. I'll just let that person, it's one of the three people behind the glass, speak up. and let us know what's happening.
It's me. I'm leaving the show.
Oh,
lame.
I know. I'm sad, too. I'm sad to leave.
We're losing Michelle Smallman. Some of you have noticed that Cerruti and Smallman have swapped seats over the last 2 weeks of this show. It's because Michelle has known, we've known since she's been a part of this crew, and I've been happy to have her as part of my family. First, as I joined Ryan's family, and then for a sweet 2 weeks, she got to be part of my family alone. We've known that Michelle is going to be moving on. Now, you can't tell us what you're going to do, right?
Not yet. I'll be revealing it soon, hopefully.
When soon?
The place that I'm headed to, they want to announce it first. Obviously, I'm going to respect their wishes and let them do that. But hopefully by next weekend, I'll be able to share where I'm heading.
And your last day with us is?
Tomorrow.
Oh, my gosh.
I know.
Awesome.
And you're leaving tomorrow tonight to go to New York. So this is the last time we'll see each other for a while.
I know it. Well, you want me to cry like I did with Russillo?
No, please don't. Please don't cry again.
No, I've really enjoyed working with you, Michelle. You brought a ton to this team. First, as I was just a bit player with Ryan, hanging out. You led us. You were a great producer for us. You were always great on the mic. Somebody ought to give you a job like that, being on the mic. And you'll be missed. You will definitely be missed.
Well, thank you. Loved working with you. This isn't the last you'll hear of me. You know I'll be texting you and listening and watching to the show and keeping in touch with everyone.
What are we going to do, guys? How are we going to replace Michelle?
We're not.
We're not.
I don't think Michelle. You can't replace Michelle.
We got to get a female voice in here to, I don't know, tell us all the ways we're pinning the tail on the shoulder of the donkey. How we're missing the mark. I don't know. Male, female, doesn't matter. You're a good voice regardless.
1 minute.
So we'll hang out tomorrow. You're not going to tell us where you're going, but everybody should give you a follow on Twitter at
M2. Terrible handle.
And Instagram?
M Smallman on Instagram.
All right. And they'll be able to find out soon enough where you're headed. As for us, maybe we'll do a vote. Maybe we'll put it out. Who should join the show? We need a new person to join the show behind the glass. So we put it to an audience vote? Probably not.
No, because there's going to be one obvious candidate, and it'll get to his head.
I don't think many people know the candidates either.
Maybe we'll do a trial run, like American Idol style. Have people sit in, see what the audience thinks. They can vote on who could join the militia, do that kind of thing. Maybe we could do that.
Pass.
Okay, pass. All right, another fun show. It's the Will Cain Show presented by Progressive Insurance. Remember, if you miss any of the show, including Darren Woodson, download our podcast on the Listen tab of the ESPN app. It's the Will Cain Show. Spain and Fitz next.
Thank you for listening to the Will Cain Podcast. You can listen to the Will Cain Show live weekdays at 3 Eastern on ESPN Radio and on the ESPN app. The Will Cain Podcast.